Yo, John, let me fuck you in your butt. Royal, what do you think about? Clear, babe. Yeah, clear, clear. Oh, really? I hate her. She's one of the funniest people on this app. I like it. Okay. Yeah, well, Nigerians, Nigerians.
she was complaining somehow, like, that her family enslaved, like, and 2 people. But then she would turn around and laugh and then be like, oh, I don't know why my people are so fucked up. But then she would laugh. Like, it was so fucked up.
Okay, so her family enslaved other people.
That's what she claims on her mother's village.
I'm not even gonna lie, my people did that as well.
But that's not, like, my whole argument, right? The argument
No, I know, sorry.
1 second she's complaining about it, like she has some kind of, like, remorse or something.
Oh, yeah.
But then the next minute she's making...
In the name of the Father,
That's just
and the Son, and the Holy Dick, amen. I hereby sentence you to death by anal rape.
What kind of weirdo is this?
Your dad.
Your mom.
This is your dad here, yeah?
Shut the fuck up.
This is your dad here, yeah?
Shut the fuck up.
This is your dad here.
Shut the fuck up.
This is your dad here.
Shut the fuck up, brother. You're shopping and making fucking
This is where you get your belly fat. This is where you get your belly fat from, bitch. Yeah? This is where you get. Dumb bitch.
Your mother's a dumb bitch.
Dumb bitch.
Your mother's a dumb bitch.
Fat
She
bitch.
swallowed you,
Fat
guys.
bitch. Shut up.
Having you shut up.
Shut you up.
Right.
Look.
Don't choke on a dick.
Don't shut you
Don't
up.
choke on a dick.
Do you
Don't
want
choke on
to
a dick and
shut
die. Don't choke on a dick and
up,
fucking die, you low
bitch?
vibrational human being. Your mother's a
Talentless
bitch.
fat
Should have
bitch.
swallowed you.
Talentless fat
Rather than
bitch.
carry
Talentless
fucking
fat
nasty
bitch.
excuses.
Talentless fat weight. Yeah.
I'm not as fat as your mum. I don't
Fat
eat pig like your mum.
You fat bitch. Shut up.
Your mother's a fat bitch. Your sister. I don't eat pork and drink beer all day like you. Fucking low budget human beings.
I don't drink.
I know your mother did.
You're a
That
fat bitch. With a fat big belly. Big belly. Big belly. Big belly.
Oh, shut up.
Fat belly. Trying to just, hey, get shafty. Your nigga is a bitch. He'll get messy. Shit. Hey, 1, 2, 5. Niggas gonna take your life. Fuck bitch. Suck it on the
Gloria, come on, Gloria.
fat bitch. Fat bitch. Fat bitch. Fat bitch. Fat bitch. Fat bitch. Fat bitch.
Fat like your fucking mum. I don't know.
Fat bitch. It's the opposite of fat. You're a fat little bitch. You're a fat. Yeah, you're a fat little bitch. You can do something
Your
like
mother's
that.
a fat bitch.
You want to suck this dick.
Your mother's a fat bitch.
Suck this dick.
You just suck your dad's weed.
She did suck this dick.
Your dad's
Suck
weed.
this dick.
Let that nigga come in her
Suck
vagina.
Get your leaves now, bitch. Those dirty
Go
fairs.
get in your
Suck
knees
this
and
dick.
go suck some cock. Go get
Suck this.
Go suck in the dick and fucking choke on it and die. While you're at it. While you're at it.
Yeah. Suck this dick.
Alright.
Suck this dick.
You don't have a fucking dick. You've got a fucking big size of a fucking penis.
So that's the dick.
Not a dick. You're a lesbian. That's a vagina.
You're autistic. You're autistic. You're autistic. The real nigga.
I'd rather be autistic than a dick sucking cunt like you.
The real nigga liar. Yeah. The real nigga liar. Yeah.
The real cocksucker, yeah?
The real nigga what sucking this dick liar.
I want to echo the sentiments of Up and Over. I mean, I've been
What's up, Mr.
he's
Bitch?
preaching the choir when it comes to me on this. I mean, I've been saying this for months in these spaces, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if there isn't, it is to Israel's advantage to escalate this in the short term if you are operating under the understanding that Iran's, the Islamic Republic's nuclear program is in some short order going to be operational. Because then you're in a situation where the entire calculus of the Middle East shifts completely. And so if you don't escalate in the short term, and you don't use this window of opportunity, you could potentially be in a world of pain in the future if the other side does indeed have nuclear weapons. You know, I'm joining this space rather late, and so if this point has already been made, please forgive me. But I think we've seen time and time again over the past couple of months, since Hezbollah initiated this conflict against Israel on October 8th by starting to rain down missiles indiscriminately, in many cases on civilian centers, that the IRGC has said, you know, the response is coming. The response is coming. We saw a response on April the 14th in conjunction with, you know, the assassinations of Fouad Shakur and, you know, then we saw Nasrallah, etc. But if Nasrallah is dead, or pardon me, Hania, but if Nasrallah is now killed and we don't see a response to this, it begs the question as to whether the IRGC will really come to bat for their proxies, right? And it weakens their image and their standing if they don't, because we've seen what's happened with Hamas. Hamas has been completely isolated. The Houthis, by virtue of geography, have been able to eke out because the Israelis and the Americans and the UK, everybody around we haven't really taken a strong position on the Houthis. But Lebanon is close, specifically southern Lebanon, is close enough to Israel where they can really hurt them. And so if there isn't a material response from the IRGC, it risks the whole network falling apart.
Not just the network, think of the domestic picture. I mean, Goldie, Johnny, what I said before, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think the IRGC are terrified. And I have to wonder, you know, that as the dominoes keep falling, what is the prospect now of the regime completely under threat? Not externally necessarily, but internally. You show weakness. There's blood in the water. I want to be optimistic that there is a world in the next few months, in the next couple of years, where the regime could fall, where they flee because they're worried about what's going to happen next. Tell me if I'm crazy for thinking this.
No, Eric, we've talked about this before. I believe pretty firmly that there are multiple target packages on the warships of the U.S. and our allies that have been pre-coordinated with Israel. And I think there is, at the extreme, a set that would go after the nuclear facilities, but there's a lot of tiers below that. And I think one of them, and I hope one of them, is what targets can be hit that are legitimate military targets in response to activity that also would undermine the security and stability of the regime. And I'm not going to speculate on what those are, but I promise you our intelligence agencies have been working with Israel's on that question.
I need to just chime in on others' hands. The last thing I'll say on this is the only difference now in terms of stability internally for Iranian and Iranians is that Russian munition supply chains are now dependent on a stable Iranian regime. And so if things escalate, and they may not, but if they do escalate, and you see instability domestically within Iran, don't be surprised if there are military advisors from Russia, that means soldiers, that are transferred to support the regime. You saw the same thing in Kazakhstan previously when that regime was also under scrutiny and there were riots in the streets from their people as well.
See, the thing is, Aristotle, I think you finished. I don't know, maybe I lost you. Really good points. The thing is that this could be a perfect storm for the Islamic Republic. You've got the Russian bears become a koala, who's got more trouble than they can deal with Ukraine. You've then now got Khamenei, who has put the house on this axis of resistance and has made it a mission. And the person that looks the weakest inside Iran right now is Khamenei. Is Khamenei, the leader of the Islamic Republic, is looking incredibly weak because he's put the house on it. Remember when Soleimani got assassinated, they were very coy, they were very sly about what they were going to do, what they weren't going to do. They found out Trump saying, by the way, I'm going to do some retaliation.
They were terrified, Johnny.
Yeah, they were terrified. So I think, Eric, Do you think in this, in just a question I'm thinking in my head, has this been a game of chess where it's all been about, in the end, checkmating the IRGC?
Yes, that's what I believe. And I want to say this because I was asked, where's my favorite GIF that I like to use, which is the Joker from The Dark Knight. And here we go. But when it comes to what's next, what is next in the sequence of dominoes? Hamas did what it did on October 7th. Israel has responded. Israel is eliminating Hamas and going to destroy that entity. Not politically, but militarily. It will never pose another military threat to the state of Israel, the people of Israel again. Period. Hezbollah was always next. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when and how. And to what degree. And I think up and over in Aristotle and Fusler, we've talked about this, Brian, we've talked about this. Now is a very different opportunity. Over the last 3 weeks, this is the point that I was trying to make before, which was Israel had a market goal of returning its people to the north of Israel, but it did not articulate any real desire to completely dismantle, destroy, and eliminate Hezbollah. That wasn't part of the mission. At least it wasn't articulated as such, because there was a very direct goal. But now, as we've seen, with the Beeper operation, with the targeted eliminations over the last several months, I mean going back months, right? And by the way, I want to remind everyone, I want to bring everyone back to January of 2024, when Israel, when the IDF took responsibility for the targeted elimination of Salah Haruri, the Hamas commander or official or whatever you want to call that guy who's now dead, in the heart of Beirut. What happened? Israel attacked, targeted him, removed him from the equation. And there was no real response from Hezbollah. Israel attacked within the Dahya, and no real response. Oh, interesting now. So that allows a mode of strategic thinking to say, okay, so this is going to be tolerated. We can do more of this. Fuad Shakur, Ali Karki, the Red One commanders, and now culminating in Nasrallah and his command center. And so this has been systemic, taking advantage of the strategic opportunities that are put in front of you. And to quote the Joker once more, when it comes to what you were asking about, Johnny, and the checkmate of the IRGC and the regime in Iran, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push. And that's what I'm hoping to see. I am very much hoping to see that.
Quick on the chessboard. Everyone just stand up from the chessboard and rewind back 6 or 7 moves. I think it was, things move so fast, but it's 2 weeks ago. Reports and revelations that the Islamic Republic was shipping missiles to Russia to be used in Ukraine. So these things are all linked. Now, when the Islamic Republic begs the U.S. to get Israel to back off or for a ceasefire, I'm sure under the table they're sending messages, okay, these are the games you want to play, how you like those apples. So these things, conflicts in so many ways, have always been linked, are still linked, and what happens in the European theater affects the Middle East theater.
And just real quick to Eric's point, remember how, well, some of you don't remember. Those of you who remember, the Soviet Union, the entire Soviet Eastern European Empire in the Cold War, once it became clear that they were not omnipotent and omniscient, they collapsed in months, not years.
Yeah.
Just a quick breaking news. According to Al Arabiya, saying that Roy can confirm that there is lost all communication with all.
Command Sergeant Shlomo, launch Operation Nasrallah.
Can't communicate with any of them.
Kijk Hagen, luchtig in dein Augen, Fusta, Good Shabbos, Baruch Atah Adonai, Chedem Chalom Shekin, the Shalom Mitzvah Tafet Zivanu Lechadik Nesher Shabbat. B'nei Plich Gaffen.
We have to remember the impact of a collapse of Hezbollah will have huge ripple on the internal society in Lebanon, and that's why the security in the south will be collapsed. And that's if the Israel's goal is to restore its residents back to the north, they cannot return to the north when there is chaos and anarchy at the borders. Thank you.
Has somebody tried paging them, Nirvana?
Yeah, so to Brian's point, obviously history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The Soviet Union collapsed by virtue of the GDR, which was not part of the Soviet Union, collapsing, which then set off the dominoes. So just as Lebanon, Hezbollah is not part of the Islamic Republic, seeing Hezbollah collapse in Lebanon could augur the collapse of the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, these are brilliant points. And I would agree. So let's just see what happens. But I think this is the most jeopardy the Islamic Republic has been in the 45 years of its history, in my opinion. All right. Think ethical. You've been waiting for ages. Go ahead. Think ethical.
I'm here, mate. Just give me 1 second.
Sleeping at the wheel. George.
Hey, so many wonderful things said today. I can add very little. I will say that there's an interesting domestic political angle here, where Donald Trump oftentimes talks about how he would be much tougher on the Islamic regime and nothing. They wouldn't dare to do anything, and there's an argument to be made for that. But also, there's very little time before the election. And so it's very high stakes for Biden-Harris right now, or Harris-Walz, I should say, because I think that if the United States doesn't back Israel strongly enough here, or seems like it's trying to put the brakes on taking out Hezbollah, which is the enemy of the United States and has a lot of American blood on its hands, that will be used politically against them. And if they lean in too hard, well, there's risk if something goes wrong with these operations. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think that the United States, and this is to Eric's earlier points, is potentially going to not just tacitly but very openly back Israel, and the United States might get more actively involved given the alternatives, right? And given that this is a unique opportunity. I also was wondering if any of you guys have played the song yet in this space. Have you played the song?
Yalla ya Nasrallah.
Sorry, I had to do 1 second. You guys don't know about the song?
That song has aged fine wine.
Never heard it in
It's
my life.
fantastic.
And
Do you want another 10 seconds of it? I know it's a serious space, but do you want another 10 seconds of it? It's quite
It was a song developed during the Second Lebanon. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, 10 more seconds. Okay. Anyway, lots of insults to Nasrallah in this song. Just beautiful sequence of them.
I don't even speak the language, and that's funny.
Yeah.
It is an old one, George. It's not new.
That's the old one.
No, it's like 18 years old.
Yeah. There's another one with a music video where these two comedian guys, they're fishing him out of holes in the ground, and they're just there's another one which is more funny, the video, but this is a great song.
So I'm getting some breaking news saying that this is OS Iron Defender. I struggle with the name. Israel sources have confirmed that beside Hassan Nasrallah, several other senior Hezbollah leaders, as well as a group of advisors from the Quds Force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, were inside the compound Kabanka when it was targeted, with all occupants expected to have been killed by the strike. So we'll go to Cheyenne inside Iran. Thank
you very much, Johnny. First, I have a word of appreciation for you guys, Johnny and Goldie, because I was in Mario's space as a speaker and I spoke, but for a little time, small time, because he violated free speech.
You went to the Hezbollah space, Cheyenne? Oh my God.
With his speaker, and I country as well. Yes.
Very brave of you to
Nice shot. Mazel tov.
Absolutely, absolutely. As soon as I started to say that this Islamic regime is not Iran and is a puppet of Russia, he started to interrupt me and ask me question, but that was not question, that was interruption. He did it deliberately to violate my free speech. He is a fraud. He's not a proponent of free speech, and that is why we need people like Johnny. That is why I love Johnny. Johnny, I appreciate
Johnny,
you.
baby.
I'm sorry for
Hey,
clash with
Positive
you.
succession.
The guy.
I got you, dog.
For these frauds. And I thank God for having you people. Thank you very much. Look, let's go to the topic. Look, what is happening inside Iran? Everyone is handing out sweets. Everyone is just my friend, my best friend actually called me and said, let's go party. But I said, I'm going to be in a space,
I ain't going to go party. No. I'm going to be in this space right here.
Everyone is happy, so happy. You see the Iranian social media, the timeline, what is happening, what the Iranians, they are just congratulating. They're just actually having celebrations on the termination of Hassan Nasrallah, this terrorist, big terrorist. Because any mullah gets killed, we get happy. That is the rule, number one rule. That is very obvious what is happening. And in terms of retaliation, Iranians think that there's nothing of substance is going to happen. Just like Ismail Hania's death, nothing of substance happened, no retaliation. With his death, nothing is going to happen. Just thank you, Brian, for 100%. And that's it. That's my assessment. Thank you very much for having me in this space.
You're welcome.
You guys appreciate it.
It's my pleasure and a privilege.
I know this is for another day, but honestly, why does anyone go into Mario Spaces anymore? I just leave that as an open question.
Because there is, can I address that question?
Yeah, you can address it. Go.
Because in an era where Mario hosts people like Suleiman and Habiba, who apparently lost her marbles today, which was hilarious, but she does that every time. But
sorry, she lost what today?
Her marbles. She lost her marbles. I was in Mario's space earlier. He pinged me, asked me to join, and I realized that quickly because I saw Suleiman at least briefly on stage. But I saw it as an opportunity to at least put positive messaging out there and correct information. Being a bulwark against the misinformation, the disinformation that occurs. Is Mario perfect? Absolutely not. But at the very least, he has entertained. I mean, during the time that I was in that space, I was up there. Ayal was up there. Iris was up there. John Spencer was up there. So we were in there, and we were able to provide both credible analysis and credible information. And he limited the amount of people that were, being disruptive or trying to fling their anti-Israel or an anti-West agenda. And I think that there is some merit to that. So there is value in participating in that sense. Other things that I disagree with, particularly his hosting of spaces that, more often than not, are flagrantly anti-Semitic, anti-everything for that matter. Absolutely. But I think in a moment such as this, it was important at least to maintain some semblance of control over misinformation, disinformation.
So Eric, we've had this debate for a year, and everybody has to make their own choices. My only point is, you, John, lending credibility to his Russian.
Hey, voila!
I understand your argument. I don't disagree with it.
Fair enough. I wanted to chime in, Johnny, because I think that there's an interesting hypothesis that's being circulated right now on X and among some private messaging groups that were shared with me. And in particular, I think there is some credence to it. And we talk about cloak and dagger. We talk about playing the long game and playing chess. This takes the cake for me in terms of the positive hypothesis. What do I mean? The decision to strike Hassan Nasrallah based off of intelligence that clearly was actionable is now being posited that decision was made Wednesday.
They decided Wednesday. Hey!
Not planned.
Great job, Joe.
You've been seeing rumors about this as well. That he
nice job, Kamala.
Decided earlier on
Good
that he wasn't going to go to the United Nations and give a speech. He wanted to stay in Israel. There's a lot, obviously, to take care of in Israel that he needed to be present for. He decided to do that. Here's where the hypothesis comes in. That his trip to the United Nations was used as smoke and mirrors to lure Hassan Nasrallah and the leadership of Hezbollah into a false sense of security, or the Israelis will not do anything huge while the Prime Minister is in the floor and giving his big speech and doing X, Y, and Z. And so it any sense of being attacked. Well, no one being.
Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Eric, do you remember what Barack Obama was doing the minute Osama bin Laden was killed?
Dance.
Wasn't he in that room with Hillary Clinton clutching her mouth?
He was making. I got maybe I'll come back to that. I might just remember the timing, but there was one major strike that we did while Obama was on stage at the Gridiron Club.
Was that you mean the correspondence there?
It's similar to that.
I know what you mean. So basically, world leader, big, country leader does something, and while he's doing something like that, something major is happening in the background, right? Oh, they're out playing golf, and yet, there's a targeted elimination of a senior terrorist or something, right? So I cannot obviously confirm whether this is true or not, but if you
That's the show, everybody.
If say the decision was made prior, and
Look at that.
it was, let's take Bibi to the United Nations, so that's a distraction, or that is a cover, or this is all happening.
Time for the pasado.
We talk about 3D chess. That's as 3D as it gets, in my opinion.
It's kind of doubly so, right? Because not only does he load them in false security, but he gets to show that he can direct that strike from whatever 7,000 miles away.
Actually, there is a post on Twitter saying that the Israeli source has said that to the Telegraph. So it's not just a speculation, but now they are talking about a report in the Telegraph.
They're talking about it to the media?
Yes.
And to circle back to everything we discussed about the IRGC, they have to be terrified, right? I mean, come on. To do something like this after the people operation, after the targeted eliminations over the last few years, after this, the guy goes to UN, gives a big speech, gets off the podium, walks off, gets called off of his press conference. The next thing you know, you lose communications, so you're the IRGC, with the entire senior leadership of Hezbollah. Insane.
As an Israeli, I can say that there's a lot of people who don't like Netanyahu here in Israel, but I think in the coming weeks and coming months and coming years, people will change their minds because of this war. Including myself, that I never liked the guy so much, but the way he's been functioning in this war is, historic.
Yeah.
I think this was a terrible time for Hezbollah to encourage the return to the offense initiative that they had worked on last quarter. This was not a good choice.
This is the Rolling Stones of Gaza, FY.
Remote work is the way to go, guys. Always.
Am I too happy?
During breakfast. I think it's been a really great conversation. Maybe slightly, Johnny, shift the conversation, because I'd be really interested with the outstanding sort of speaker panel you've got up here. We've talked in the past about where this sits in a historical context, and I've made the argument, I know Brian has, that we're at that stage where the
This is my new Hasidic cap.
win this conflict.
This is groundbreaking Yiddishkeit technology made of plastic fibers
So we used the analogy, I
from
think, Johnny, the last time
from
we
the
spoke
skin of
of
Hashem.
1942, 1943, where the Germans and the Japanese must have known they couldn't win the war at that stage. The Japanese had lost, I think, 3 or 4 fleet carriers midway, and the Germans had just been beaten at Gallipoli shortly after they were, beaten at Stalingrad. They couldn't win the war, but that didn't necessarily mean the Allies were going to win it. We thought we were at that stage, but this conflict is moving at a completely different pace. And it seems to me that we've sort of moved into, again, I'm going to use the Second World War analogy, 1944.
The Allies are in Italy. They've landed in France. These are the defining battles that will lead to the end of the war. And I think, that's what we're starting to see now. I think it's particularly important because somebody mentioned that, I think it was you, Eric, but if it wasn't, forgive me. Somebody early on said that Netanyahu had promised, and Netanyahu had stated that this wasn't the first war in Gaza, but it would be the last. And my understanding was he also said this isn't the first war in Lebanon, but it will be the last. Or this isn't the first war against Hezbollah, but it will be the last. And as I've said before, one would be wise to listen to what the Israelis say in terms of aims, because they have a reputation for saying what they're going to do and doing what they're going to say, which is why so many people are currently leaving the location they've said they were going to hit in about 30 minutes now. The point I suppose I'm making here is that what is the Middle East likely to look like? I do think that the military capability of Hamas and Hezbollah will be so significantly curtailed that they're effectively defeated. But what does defeat and victory look like? We can certainly see it, at a theatre level. I'm interested to know what people think it'll look like at a strategic level, because I personally think, just following on from Eric's point about, or a number of people have made the point that, this is the opportunity, there is a strategic opportunity here for Israel to really shift the whole map of the Middle East in its favour, the geostrategic map I'm talking about, not the actual map. And I think in geostrategic terms, what Israel is most concerned about is the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. So how do we see, what does victory look like, and what do we think the various players would consider to be victory? Because we know that for Hamas it's survival, it's just their continued survival in Gaza. But what does it look like for